Welcome back to the Oracle. We predict the news before it happens. I'm Max Keiser with Stacey Herbert and our guest, Andy Zaltzman. And on satellite from New York, Max Wolff. Stacey, while the American people are about to receive their third New Deal in 76 years, American banks are on their third and fourth new bailout deals in less than 6 months. Stacey, the world wants the Oracle to tell them, is this a new deal or just a massive con game brought to you by the same crooks who destroyed the system already?
Max, it looks that way from the headlines. Citigroup's latest bailout gives the U.S. more control, and the never-ending bailout. This refers to AIG, which has received $180 billion from the U.S. taxpayer. Max, Wolff, can you tell us, what is AIG?
Well, AIG is the artist formerly known as American International Group, which is in its variously expensive death throes. It's a little bit like a very sick patient on whom American society likes to spend enormous amounts of money when the terminal episode is near. However, if we don't give the money to AIG and let AIG give it to the people that it wrote way too much insurance with way too little reserves on, the losses will show up on the books of its so-called counterparties, or those people who bought insurance from a company that doesn't have enough money, except for through government handouts, to insure Doghouse at this point.
Right, so it's a bit of a shadow puppet game where these two companies, AIG and presumably the biggest counterparty in this case, Goldman Sachs, are locked in a death spiral, and that the government, by bailing out AIG, is actually just bailing out Goldman Sachs, aren't they?
Well, by bailing out AIG, or by continuously infusing AIG with money at almost as fast a speed as it loses money to its past miswritten contracts, we're keeping these losses on AIG's books, and in fact on the taxpayers' books, and keeping them off the books of those other firms with whom they do business, one of which, a leading one of which, is certainly Goldman. I don't know that Goldman is in a death spiral, but AIG, I think, is not long for this world, and whatever's left of it will be chopped up and sold off in bits if they can find buyers for it somewhere 6 to 12 months out.
Andy, what do you think of this business model in America? It's,
Well, I mean, from a British perspective, it reminds me very much of the Queen Mother, because the Queen Mother was a similarly important national institution that the government was terrified about the damage to public morale were she to die, and they kept her artificially alive for probably 20 or 30 years beyond her natural span. Although eventually she was chopped up into bits and sold to the highest bidder. So it's kind of like that all over again. I mean, personally, I don't understand. I don't understand just throwing money at things. It seems to be that a kind of black hole theory, that if you keep filling a black hole with enough stuff, eventually it will get full. Now, I'm not an astronaut, so I don't know if that's true, but it does seem a slightly risky way of going about things.
Well, the headlines from the New York Times regarding the AIG is the never-ending bailout. And part of the problem seems to be that AIG, basically for several years, as the New York Times calls it, they had a scam going in which they sold credit default swaps. They insured the global financial system against meltdown. And when the global financial meltdown came, it seems that they were unable to insure it. And this is now what the U.S. taxpayer is effectively doing.
Yeah, AIG thought they had found a great magical way of basically printing money. They believed, as did many others, including folks at the ratings agencies and at the regulatory agencies in the United States and abroad, thought that they were basically getting money for nothing. They thought they were selling flood insurance in the desert. The only problem is it rained, and then it didn't stop raining, and then it kept raining, and then the levees broke, and all of a sudden they were selling flood insurance in a desert under 10 feet of water. They had budgeted a small amount of money. They had thought that they had found a magical zone of the world economy with little or no regulation where they could offer lots of protection because they could be pretty sure they'd never have to pay back on it. And then everything they never thought could possibly happen more or less happened in a 12-month period, and it obliterated their totally inadequate setting aside of money and provisioning to pay out these claims in the event they were ever made.
Yeah, well, you know, Max, I remember back in 1987, I was working on Wall Street as a stockbroker during the crash of '87, which was caused by something called portfolio insurance, which was this notion that you could somehow insure against stock market volatility, and the nominal value of that insurance was way bigger than the entire sum valuation of all the stocks combined, and of course the market crashed as a result. Now, instead of drawing a lesson from that, the engineers on Wall Street, the financial engineers, said let's try it on a bigger scale, which led to long-term capital management. The same thing. They thought they could insure against losses, huge crash. But instead of drawing a lesson from that, they said let's try it on an even bigger scale. So they went to the dot-com build-up and crash. Then they went to the real estate build-up and crash. They did no lessons yet. They said let's try it on a bigger scale. They took every single bank in the world. They connected all the back offices into one huge Ponzi scheme slush fund and made it leveraged to 10 times the total GDP of the entire planet, and it blew up. And they're saying, wow, we never saw it coming. But it happened in '87 and every year since then. That's why they're completely crooked. I don't know why people aren't taking them out back and shooting them. Your response, Max?
Everyone makes mistakes.
Perhaps not everyone has the cogent, calm, considered response that you do. The banks certainly did have many misadventures, and they were quite greedy. And it's also true that everyone's been talking about the banks, but the bottom line is the banks were just one of a long line of corporate partners for the American public and the American government who've ripped everyone off. And the reason the banks got so powerful is because American jobs haven't paid enough for people to live middle-class lives in 30 years, and they borrowed the difference. And so this problem extends to Wall Street at least as much as it does to Main Street, and vice versa. Although I do agree with you that there's a long history, probably about a 200-year history, of Wall Street trying to invent products to remove the fundamental uncertainty and risk in the market, which you can't do. They invent these products. People become so overly confident in them that they begin to speculate in the products that are there to insure against speculation. The reductio ad absurdum goes hot, it blows, and all of a sudden people run around and say, how could this possibly happen?
Yeah.
We never saw it coming. It hasn't happened in at least 8 years. Sweet Jesus, we thought we had conquered risk. I guess we haven't. And you're right.
Uptown is called crack cocaine, and down on Wall Street it's called a financial derivative. It's the same dealer mentality. They're pushing junk onto the public, and they get hooked on junk, hooked on debt, and they become a drain on society. And then the Republicans come in and blame the crackheads who have got hooked on the debt and foreclosed on their mortgages. You know, it's the old model.
Well, there is a big difference, because if you develop a crack problem in the United States, you absolutely cannot and will not get any government assistance.
The world wants to know, is there a bottom to the black hole of American banks? How many new deals will we get? Prediction 1, Citigroup's market cap falls below $1 billion, offers to sell U.S. taxpayer remaining 64% of company for $235 billion. Citigroup has a negative market cap, as do all the banks in the world. They're all insolvent. Prediction number 2, AIG proves existence of dark matter before the Hadron Collider does. Wow, that's great. Congratulations, AIG and U.S. taxpayer. You proved the existence of dark matter, but at only a cost of 30 times more to destroy AIG than it cost to build the frickin' collider. Your response, Andy Zaltzman.
Well, I think mate, if you just replaced Wall Street with a great big particle accelerator and just let nature take its course, then you'd probably destroy the world, but it'd be fun along the way. Surely that's what macroeconomics should be about. Bit of entertainment for the fans. Get the kids interested in economics again.
Max Wolff, quick response to the predictions of the Oracle.
I think there's a possibility that Citigroup does get nationalized. That would drive its effective market cap, by the way, to zero, and it would cost the government more money.